بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So we left off talking about music from God's, not God's emissaries, greater sins. So we left off, we talked about many different narrations about forbidden instruments and things like that. And we got to the section where it talks about the founder of music. Where did music come from? So we have narration that says when Adam alayhi salam passed away, Iblis and Qabil, the son of Adam, Iblis and Qabil were delighted. They both gathered on the earth, and Iblis and Qabil used a stringed instrument and to rejoice on the death of Adam. Thus, whatever types of instruments are on the earth that people derive pleasure from are from these instruments that they first used. So our narrations say that this act of music started from Shaitan and Qabil celebrating the death of Adam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, it says here, Kana ablisa awwala man taghna. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi said, Iblis was the first person to sing, do music. Also from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, when a person is blessed with a blessing from Allah, and with this blessing the person goes towards music, then verily he has been ungrateful to him. As well, if a person is afflicted with trials and tribulations and he responds to them by sighs or lamenting, then too verily he has been ungrateful to him. So they say that this type of, like, basically if you get blessed with something and then you go do haram after it to celebrate. So they get blessed with, some sort of blessing, and they say, oh, let's go celebrate and sing and dance and all these type of things due to this bounty that they got from Allah. Then this is actually being ungrateful for that blessing that they have, according to this narration of our Imam. Then it goes further, says, for the punishment of the one who listens to music, we have narrations from Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. The first one's Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, verily Shaitan is referred to as kafandar, one with a bad face, because he spends 40 days in the house of a person who plays drums and cymbals. The Shaitan strokes all the parts of the person's body, so that the eyes, ears, tongue, and all other parts of the body are placed under the control of Shaitan, so that they can all fall into sin. After this, in order to completely drown the person in evil and darkness, Shaitan blows wind into this person, making him become utterly shameless, so much so that even if his own wife was to have unlawful relations with another person, he would not be concerned or affected. So this is riwayat showing us that the music attracts Shaitan and makes one shameless, that they don't care about anything. And a lot of times, if you see the lifestyle of these musicians and how they live and how they deal with women and all these other things, you'll see that this, we can see the manifestation of this with those people. I don't know, they used to call it like the rock and roll lifestyle. You see how the people live. So utterly shameless, no care about anything. They don't think about akhirah or anything, and they're doing lots of haram things. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, do not enter into the houses which due to committing sins have been prevented from enjoying the mercy of Allah. So he's saying that don't enter those houses where the music is being played. Imam Sadiq also said, playing music makes hypocrisy grow in the heart, just like water makes vegetation grow. We mentioned before, a lot of times with the music, there's a lot of bad messages in the music that they make it seem like it sound nice, but when you really listen to what they're saying, it's full of all type of corrupt ideas. And music alters the mood of the person so much that it can change people, it can move people to do things. We see a lot of times musicians sing songs to make the people uprise and overthrow a nation, overthrow a government, just through songs, because of their the emotions and the message that they carry in the song. Or they listen to songs with bad lyrics of doing haram things, and then they start singing those things, and they say, "Oh, I want to see what this type of life," or they start living the type of life of the music that they listen to. They start living the lyrics that they listen to. They listen to gangster music. They want to act like the gangster, you know, this type of stuff. It influences the person that listens to it. And sometimes they don't even know what it says. They just listening and they're moving their head. But eventually, when they look at the lyrics, they will say, "Oh, wow, I didn't know it said that." The song could sound nice to them, but when they look at the lyrics, it could be talking about being atheists, rejecting Allah and all sort of other things. But they don't know, they just listen. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Verily, I prohibit you from two types of sounds which are useless and vain. One is the sound of the vain song or chant, and the sound of shaitan that misguides people. And the other is crying that one does when he hears of a problem, which is accompanied by the scratching of the face, ripping of the clothes, and the sound of crying accompanied with this." Because when we go through hardship, we also should not complain to the point that we are hopeless, and we are it's natural to cry on the loss of loved one and things like this due to the separation. But what is meant here is the person that becomes ungrateful and complains against Allah for what has happened in their life, and they cry and they rip their clothes and they're complaining against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what is being talked about here, because we should have sabr, should have patience. We should say, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un," and we get so many rewards for that, so much thawab for being patient in the face of afflictions. There's a whole nother subject on this altogether, but it's mentioned that when we want to cry about anything, when we are afflicted with any trouble, any tribulation, any trial, that we should remember Imam Hussein alayhi salam and cry for Sayyid al-Shuhada, the master of the martyrs, Abu Abdullah Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I remember one of the mujtahideen in Najaf. I met his son several times. It was so nice. His son was very nice, very welcoming, and always smiling, and everyone loved him. He was an alim too, a Sayyid, very, very good scholar, and he passed away. His picture is on the highway from Najaf to Karbala now, but he passed away in a car accident. And I remember they had recording, and they were showing, they came into the office and they told his father. His father just started doing musibah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam on how he lost his sons, and they all were crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So as soon as he got the news, the affliction, his mind went right towards Imam Hussein. And that's what we should do. Is anything that we go through in this life is nothing compared to what Imam Hussein alayhi salam went through. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he said, "The angels do not enter into that house in which there is alcohol, a drum, a tambour, or cards, gambling instruments. Their supplications are not answered, and the blessings are removed from them." So sometimes maybe we are, someone is making dua, and they don't know why their dua is not accepted. But sometimes these things are blocking their dua, something else that they have going on in their life. They're doing things to hinder their own supplication from being answered. And these are some of the things. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that singing is close to adultery. It leads to this thing. We see what type of outcomes come from those musical gatherings or concert or nightclub or something like this. They come together and they enjoy listening to the songs and dancing together, and the next thing you know, they're going away and going to do zina. Na'udhu billah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, stay away from ghina, singing and music, because it destroys the shame, modesty, and it increases the sexual excitement. It kills one's manliness and verily leads one to alcohol, and he will then become drunk. Thus, if you are led into music, then stay away from women, since music and singing will lead a person to commit adultery. Is exactly as I explained before. One thing, these things are all intertwined. One leads to the other one. The next, music could lead to drinking. Drinking leads to losing the senses, not thinking about what we're doing. And music leads to dancing. Dancing leads to zina. So it's all a path. And Allah tells us to stay away from zina. Don't approach it or anything related to it. So all of these things are related to that, and they all lead down that path. So maybe they start with one sin, but end up doing multiple sins just from entering the gate of one. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, verily Allah the highest appointed me to guide mankind and as a mercy for the entire universe, and commanded me to remove the type of drum and stringed instrument. And it mentions some other instruments about Arabic name, autar, Authan, as well as the acts of the period of ignorance. Verily, the instruments of music, its construction, selling, profit, and trading of them are all forbidden. So they fall under the forbidden transactions. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the person who plays the drum will be raised on the day of judgment, while his face will be darkened, and in his hands will be a drum made of fire. Above his head will be 70,000 angels, and in the hand of each of them will be a chain, which they will hit against that person's head and face. The person who sang will be brought forth from his grave blind, deaf, and mute. The one who performed adultery will be gathered and raised in the same manner. The one who played the wood instrument will be the same, and so will be the player of the drum. So we see that the adulterer and the singer are in the same category on Day of Judgment. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, one who listens to law or music, vain talk, will have hot lead poured into his ears on Day of Judgment. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, the female slave girl or woman who sings is cursed, and so is the one who gives her money, as well as one who spends that money is also cursed. So we see that these are the punishments for these sins in the afterlife. Maybe one will take them lightly in this world and say, oh, it's no big deal, because society has adapted to these things and made them the norm. They are normal. They have normalized all these actions. So as we said before, anywhere you go, you hear music. Growing up, you hear music in the car, in the grocery store, in the elevator, in the bathroom, anywhere you go, any public place, there's music. So they are used to these things. So take it lightly, but it can have repercussions for our akhirah. So the precaution, we should try our best to stay away from these things. When we mentioned earlier is active listening, like listening to it on purpose, but the background noise when you're not listening to it is something different. We cannot escape that in this life. It'd be very hard to. Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha alayhi salam says, one who stays away from ghina will be given a tree in paradise, in its place which Allah will order the wind to move. A beautiful sound will come from that tree, filling all of paradise, a sound which no person till today has ever heard. However, a person who did not keep away from ghana will never hear that sound. So we see the reward for staying away from these things. In this world, we will have something even better in akhirah, inshallah. Now it comes to Holy Quran. He said, in addition to the ahadith, there are a lot of ayat, verses of Quran dealing with music as we know it today. In actuality, anything which is vain or futile. He brings ayat, Surah 22, ayat 30. Allah says, so abstain from the pollution of the idols and abstain from false and vain words. In Arabic, this word zur is mentioned as false, vain words. It says it has a lot of different meanings, which include falsehood and musical expressions are in the same category as this. According to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, when it mentions the pollution of the idols in this verse, it means chess, according to tafsir. And vain words means music in this verse, according to tafsir from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So in this verse, we see how Allah compares refraining from idols with staying away from vain words or music. So they're in the same type of category according to this ayat. Also, another ayat that's brought is Surah 31, ayat 6. And amongst people there is he who buys vain talk so that he may mislead others from the path of Allah without real knowledge. And takes it, the revelation of Allah, for a mockery, for these shall be a disgracing chastisement. In the verse, buys vain talk, law. Law is anything that diverts the mind from serious thinking, to take the mind away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's been interpreted by Imam as any talk, sound, or thing which diverts the attention away from man, attention of man from the ultimate end and the ultimate aim of our creation. It means to make him forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and forget his commands and these things. A lot of things can fall under this category, things that bring our mind away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's music, intoxicants, or gambling, or other things. Imam Bakr alayhi salam said, music is among the things for which Allah has promised the fire. Then he recited that verse above, the one we mentioned, Surah 31, ayat 6. These narrations and these things I brought are mentioned in Tafsir Safi, one of our famous tafsir, also Al-Kafi, Wasa' al-Shia, many other books. Said successful, Quran 23, ayat 1 through 3. Successful are indeed are the believers, those in who their prayers are humble and who keep themselves away from vain words. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنَّ الْلَحْوَ مُعْرِضُونَ. Keep themselves away from vain things. He says, what does the word lah mean in this verse? Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he said that all that is void of the remembrance of Allah is lah. According to other, because these things engross the person so much that they forget about everything else. They forget about Allah, they forget about what they're supposed to do, like drinking, alcohol, intoxicants, gambling, music can make the person forget all about what they're doing, and their mind is somewhere, some other place. So it falls under this category. According to other narrations of the Imams, lahu means all useless entertainment, wasting time, among which music has been specifically mentioned. Also, it included in this term are vain games that are played just to waste time. If you let these things consume you, it can take one away from the remembrance of Allah. For example, it's permissible to play video games, right? But if you let the thing consume you so much so that you're playing salat comes in, is like I'm in the game. I'm in the game. If I leave, I can't pause. I'm in the game. If I'll lose all my progress, and they keep playing, and then the salat is gone. Next salat comes in. Next thing you know, they're still playing, and then they are so tired they just sleep. They forget all about the salat. Then they wake up next day, have to do, they realize now they have qada they have to do. But this game took them away from the remembrance of Allah. So if it comes to that extent, then there is a problem. Surah 25, ayat 72. And the servants of the merciful Allah are those who bear not witness to what is false, and when they pass by what is vain, they pass by with dignity. The words zur and lah have been explained. We already explained those. And the traditions from the Imams, alayhimus salam, the first part, they say them could be translated in this way: who do not witness what is vain. And accordingly, it's been interpreted in tafsir of Quran that they don't listen to music. Then he brings the other narrations that explain the second part of the verse. We mentioned the verse, those who bear not witness to what is false, and when they pass by what is vain, they pass by with dignity. So Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, he asked some of his companions, where are you staying? They said, we're so-and-so, but that person has a singing and dancing girls. Imam said, you should have dignity. They thought that the Imam had advised them to treat the host, with generosity, nice, be good to the host, but they were not sure. So they came back to the Imam and requested him to explain, what do you mean by have dignity? The Imam said, have you not heard Allah saying, when they pass by what is vain, they pass with dignity? The Imam meant that you should not stay with a person who has singing and dancing girls. Well, what type of dignity is that you would have? It's shameless. One of these people mentioned here, Muhammad ibn Abi Irbad, was known to indulge in music and alcohol. He once asked Imam Ridha alayhi salam about listening to music. The Imam said, some people in Hijaz have their own view about it, but that view is absolutely wrong. Have you not heard the word of Allah? When they pass by what is vain, they pass in dignity. Meaning that his opinion regarding music was of those who heard it, that they would pass by and they would pay no attention to it. They wouldn't get sucked in by that and start dancing and partake in that thing. Also from Abi Basir, that he said, I asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam regarding the words of Allah, and stay away from the filth of idols and stay away from the vain talk. And we mentioned Surah Hajj ayat 30. The Imam said, this is ghina, this is singing. Also, Imam Sadiq said regarding the verse, the same verse, that he said, the filth of the idols is chess, and the vain talk is ghina. So mentioned here chess and singing. This is in Tafsir Nur al-Thaqalain. Also, it continues, and those who do not witness false speech means the gatherings of immoral people, and those who are surrounded by false speech, and those who are not surrounded by false speech. So those bad gatherings, we can say, like nightclubs or these type of things where haram is being committed openly. These places are, places of immoral people. Imam said we should not go to those places. We pass by with dignity, respect for ourselves, respect for us being, Muslims. Imam Bakr alayhi salam said, ghina is that sin which Allah, the Glorious and High, has promised the hellfire. Then the Imam read the following verses of the Quran, and among the people is he who purchases vain talk so as to mislead people from the path of Allah without knowledge, and he takes that vain talk as treats it as a matter of fun. verily for them is a punishment. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he said, a gathering in which there is ghana is one in which Allah does not even look upon the people in attendance, meaning his blessings, his mercy are taken away from those people in that gathering. And it is this kind of gathering that Allah has said, and amongst the people is he who purchases vain talk to mislead people from the path of Allah. One of the men that were present there asked Imam Sadiq, he says, I was in the presence of Imam Sadiq when someone said to him, may my mother and father be sacrificed for you. My neighbor is a slave girl. My neighbor has a slave girl who sings while using the oud, the type of instrument. When I need to go to the washroom, I stay there a little bit longer so I can listen to her. We mentioned this before. The Imam said, don't do this. On the day of judgment, you will have no excuse or justification to present to Allah for this. Have you not heard the words of Allah in the Quran where he said, verily the ears, the eyes, and the heart, all of them will be questioned. Surah Isra, ayat 38. The man, he said, I swear by Allah, it is as if I have never heard this verse, be it from an Arab or from non-Arab. I promise to Allah from this day on, I will never do this again, and I'll ask forgiveness of Allah. The Imam said, get up and do ghusl, and however much you are able to perform salat, since up till now you have been submerged in performing a major sin. What kind of bad state you would be in if you were to die like this? So it shows us the magnitude of what he was doing and what someone may seem as something light. It says, and those who stay away from vain talk, meaning from al-ghina and music. This is from Tafsir Nur al-Thaqalain. There are hundreds, the author says there's hundreds, if not thousands, of ahadith in relation to the prohibition of music and singing. You can't bring all of them here because this is an article. The above mentioned hadith and verses of the Quran should suffice for the true Shia and follower of Rasulullah to convince him that listening to various, if not all types of music are forbidden in Islam. Then we go to classification of music. He said, in regards to the various categories of music and how to differentiate which are permitted and which are not, these can be broken into 4 groups. The first one, music, which contains both instruments that are forbidden and lyrics that are forbidden. Second, let's say where he goes on and he said these instruments such as stringed instruments or other things that are mentioned that are forbidden, and also the music, the lyrics are forbidden as well. They have like vulgar lyrics or haram things, or they're talking about bad things, obscene things. Second category, so this one is the instruments are forbidden, the lyrics are forbidden. Second category, music which contains instruments that are forbidden, but the lyrics are okay, meaning that the lyrics don't encourage one to do haram. He says some types of music may be traditional. He mentions Qawwali from India, Pakistan, other parts may have beautiful message about Allah, Prophet, Ahlul Bayt, but since they contain unlawful musical instruments, the entire thing becomes forbidden. He says, I don't know these people, but it's from the article. Says some examples that come to mind are the late Nusrat Fateh, Ali Khan, and others like him. So this one, instruments are for second category, instruments are forbidden, lyrics are good, okay, not forbidden. Third group, music which contains instruments that are permitted, such as the drum, other types, but the lyrics are haram. Lyrics are bad. So these instruments may be allowed in Islam, he said, but the message is negative. Maybe cursing or negative messages and these type of things. For example, he brings like rap music, for example, because they don't use musical instruments. They use a beat machine, drum machine, and these things. It could be just a simple drum, which is okay, but the lyrics that they bring maybe could be haram, could be talking about drugs, alcohol, gangs, insulting women, or other type of things, perhaps. So this type, the instrument was okay, but the lyrics were bad. Fourth category, he says, music which contains instruments that are permitted and the lyrics are also permitted. This type of music is, he says, is very rare to find. And he says you may have heard certain Muslim performers, he says, for like a lack of better word, who recite beautiful songs in praise of Allah, in praise of Rasulullah, or about akhlaqi things. They have only used halal instruments, and there's nothing in their vocals that could raise objection to this. And he brings some examples, Yusuf Islam, someone named Dawood Warnsby, Ali from Canada, and others like this. So maybe they had some, the lyrics were good, and they only used, for example, a drum or something like this. He said, to find music that fits into this group is very difficult, but it does exist. The music, although it contains a positive message, should never be substituted for the real thing. What we mean here is that one can listen to it for a type of pleasure or to teach and train young children, but one must turn back to reading books, listening to and reading the Quran and dua to truly learn about the religion of Islam. He said, in no circumstances should we treat this last form as simple entertainment that we put on to pass time or relax with. So what I noticed in a lot of things, sometimes people try to substitute something for something else. For example, there was rap music that had a negative message in it. Maybe let's say, like, I remember as growing up like early 90s, late 80s or something. So then they came out with a Christian rap to mimic this type of rap, but had different message. But it's the same type of thing. It reminds me of the carnivals that they have in Latin America. So the church people, Christians, they know they cannot pull those people away from that. It's very hard because it's a big festival of debauchery, basically, for them. But what they would do is they would make a church carnival to pull them away. Or they would, for example, in America, they have a trick or treat, so they do the trick or treat at the church, even though they are totally against Halloween. But they do it at the church because they cannot take that away, so they just replace it with something. They try to make it halal, if we can say. Many instances like this they would just change the name of it. And it's the same for many of the holidays that we see. They were already being celebrated in pagan times, but when the Christians overcame and they became dominant, they didn't take that holiday away from them, but they changed it a little bit and said, instead of doing it for this idol or this whatever you were worshiping on that day, we're going to change it and you're going to do it for Jesus instead. If this was the birth of some other pagan god and you're worshiping on this day and you're doing these things and you're bringing gifts and things on this day, we'll just change it. And you just say it's for the birth of Jesus Christ, for example. So these type of things, they were adapting, they were altering. And he's saying we should not try to do that, try to mimic them and come up with some sort of halal version just to please ourselves. And in reality, they are really wanting to do the other one. It remind me also, there's we have all of this meat that's not meat, beyond meat and these things. It's a good alternative for us. But I saw that there was some experiment that they made pork, but it's not meat. It's like vegetarian, vegan type of meat, but it's supposed to be like pork. So they were trying to have like Muslims try this, like why would we want to do something like that? If Allah told us this is forbidden, why do we want to go and order a pork that's not pork? These type of things, or get a wine that's not wine. It's a dangerous kind of road to go down, in my opinion. Maybe they taste that and they want to go for the real thing. They drink a wine with no alcohol, then they want to go for the real wine the next time. So we have to watch out and stay away from the things that lead towards other things.
Is it the same thing like root beer or ginger beer? Did you think
No,
that's the problem?
root beer is not anything like a beer. It's just a type of soda. They just call it that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just like a regular soda. This just has that name, but they do make and market like halal rum, halal wine, halal, like this. And I just
Okay.
think it's a kind of a slippery slope, if we can
Sure.
say. No one wants to drink. Okay, I can't imagine like a Muslim saying, okay, we're gonna take shots tonight at our party. We're gonna put on our halal music and we have shots of halal rum, It's just, and we have halal pork chops, like the beyond the pork. It just sounds really strange, like why would we want to do that?
Yeah, that's
Even
true.
though it might all be halal things, it's is a dangerous road to go down,
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Then we go to halal carnival, Yeah, so
Yeah.
dangerous road. So let's see. He says, he says here, it's noteworthy to mention that some of the instruments used in ghina, such as tanbour, oud, ni, what's this word, deira, type of instrument that have been mentioned in the hadith have just been used as examples of instruments which were used during that time period. Therefore, in today's day and age, any kind of instrument, they fall under that category. They could fall under that umbrella. They're just mentioned as examples. He says the ahadith and the verses of the Quran mentioned do not differentiate between the various categories of music. Thus, there is no difference between national and foreign music, original and non-original music, traditional and non-traditional music. That which must be used as the measuring stick is if the music is one which would fall into the category of being considered as lah, which we explained earlier, in which case it would be haram, even if it was original or traditional music of a particular country. This point is emphasized since Muslim youth usually note that since a particular Islamic country plays music or permits their traditional or cultural music, then it is allowed. He said we have to learn to differentiate between what is Islam and the actions of a Muslim country. These are not, synonymous with each other. Some people say, okay, all the people are doing it, so it must be okay. I see all the Muslims doing it, so it must be halal. Is the danger in this is unfortunately a lot of the Muslims have gotten far away from Islam, and they are doing things. For example, Muslim country, everyone is drinking alcohol openly outside. Is no shame in the drinking alcohol. So someone could see all of the Muslims drinking, so okay, Muslims drink, it's fine, it's okay. Then maybe they accept Islam in that country and they just see everyone drinking and they drink as well, because all the people drinking are Muslims. Astaghfirullah, but this is the time we're living in, akhir zaman. It says from various verses of the Quran, we can deduce that a person who goes after music and these types of sounds slowly but surely will get to a point where he will begin to mock his religion, the verses of Allah, the prophets, and the righteous believers of Allah. Quran states those people who chase after false words have become so drowned in sins that they begin to misguide people and take the signs of Allah as a joke. He said, we must pay attention to the fact that Shaitan will approach people in various ways to misguide them. It is possible that by slipping or forgetfulness, the name of Azadari, or weeping for the martyrdom of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Hussein alayhi salam, and the other Imams, one may fall into the sin of listening to or creating ghina. So someone could have the intention of doing something good for Imam Hussein, but it could, we mentioned this before, but they could start involving music and other things, and it could end up turning into something bad. He says all of the Maraja Taqlid are unanimous on the fact that even the recitation of the Holy Quran or Marthia, the poems to commemorate the death of the Imams and Imam Hussein, recited in the form of ghina is haram. This is a point he said we all need to ponder on when we listen to or recite noha or other things in our majalis. We've seen some people, they tiptoe on the line of halal and haram when they're making their noha or musiba, non-musiba, latmiya, these type of things, unfortunately. Because they think if they do that or imitate the disbelievers and those things, it will bring them more, more likes or more views and these type of things. I think we have run out of time. Maybe we can finish this in the next week, inshallah.
Sure,
Sallallahu
inshallah.
alaihi wa sallam.
Allahumma salli ala
Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.